morning to you guys. I am Mr. Ndabezita, and in the first tutorial we dealt with some of the work on the integers, but I did not go thoroughly into those integers and show you the differences that we can encounter whenever we declare variables of type int and type double. So I have compiled a document here which I believe will help us very much when we will be dealing with these integers. So what I did, I simply copied this and paste, and then let me explain the variables that I have. I have ABC of type int, DEF of type double. So C, as you see, there's only garbage there. We're going to do what? We're going to find out what happens between B and A, storing it inside of F, and this storing it inside of C, and also looking what is happening between D and E and storing that inside our variable F. So for example, I can say C equals A divided by B, and I want to find out what is happening in here by typing console dot write line and then having my C. So C will return for me exactly what happens between A and B. Right. Now I have 5 divided by 2, and the answer that I get, it's a 2.5. Now let's come here. Integer divided by an integer should bring an integer. Integer divided by an integer should bring an integer. So what the compiler is going to do, it's going to get rid of that 0.5 and only print out 2 for us. So when we try and run our code, we have exactly 2 being displayed. I can even reverse this and say, now I want B to divide A, and see exactly what happens. Now I want 2 to divide 5. We know that 5 cannot go into 2, so the compiler would get rid of that 0.4 and only print out a 0. And when we run, we have that 0. That's how the integer division works. But what if I try to store in a double here? What if I try to store a double? I'm now trying to say integer by a double. Integer by a double should bring a double, and this becomes an impossibility because C, it's initially declared as an int, so an int cannot accommodate a double, so it will throw in an error, and when we hover over the error, it says cannot implicitly convert type double to int. Right, so that means it becomes impossible for you to store it inside of that. All right, and then let's go and try to look when we're using F equals let's say D divided by E. Well, I want to find out, and then I want to output F. Now double divided by double brings a double, so double by double will bring a double, and F has no problem in storing in a double because it is initially declared as a double, and I will have my answer as a double, that is 2.5. Even when I reverse this, there is no problem. I will still get my solution as 0.4. We also know that doubles have the capability of also storing the integers, so I can just come here and say E divided by B, and I will get a double. And I can also come, for example, now and say E by A, there is no problem, a double will be brought, and we have a double. Right, now what if I have 2 ints now? A divided by B. Now that I have 2 int, and I know integer by integer brings an integer, even though it's a container of a double, having the capabilities of storing an int it will return an int, not a double. So let's run and see. I have my 2. Even if I can reverse this and say b by a, I will still have an int being displayed, because remember, it will discard those point values because integer by integer brings an integer. Right, this is one thing I wanted us to look at. Let's now go and look at another operator which we call the modulus. So let's just look at the modulus and see what happens. What happens. Let's just look what will happen. Let me just comment these lines. Right, I will still work with these variables in our study and see how they affect the modulus operator. Now, the modulus operator, it's a particular sign that I'm going to use and explain exactly how it works. Suppose I want to find out what is a modulus b. So this is what we call the modulus operator. The modulus operator will only bring you the remainder of 2 numbers when they are divided. And when I run my code, oh sorry, I didn't have console.writeLine. And when I run my code, I have 1. So let's see exactly what happened. Well, we said a, that's 5, divided by 2, and I know my answer should be 2.5. But remember, we're saying here, how many times does 2 goes into 5? It goes 2 times, the remainder is 1. So that remainder will only be printed out. So it will bring you the remainder of 2 numbers. What if you reverse this? What if you say b modulus a? What will now happen? All right, let me explain it before we can run the compile. Now I have a bigger number going into a smaller number. A smaller number will be printed out. A smaller number will be printed out. Always and always, if you have a bigger number going into a smaller number will be printed out. Even if I can say, for example, here my a, it's now my b it's now 4 will be returned because that's the smaller number. So you can even check with negative numbers. You will see that it also works very fine. Okay, now this is where I want us to draw our attention upon. I want us to draw our attention upon that. So let's just check. Here we were dealing with an integer division. We were dealing with the integer division, and then let me do this. Right, and when I'm here, I want us to look at the following: the single alternative selections, and then I'll just copy and paste, and then just comment this as a heading on what we will be dealing with. All right, now what are single alternative selections? Let's go through some notes together and then we read. All right, we use the if statement to conditionally execute statements. What does that mean? It simply means if I have statements and I want them to be initialized based on certain conditions that I have created. So that is to say, if this condition is true, then I want you to execute a particular command, and then if it is not true, then do something else. That's what we mean when we say we use if statements to conditionally execute statements. So you're creating conditions and then you having your consoles running based on whether the conditions are true or false. That's what it basically means. So let's look at the syntax. you have that small cap if. This is a reserved keyword. You have if, you have those parentheses, and then you have your test. This is where the condition is. If this condition is met, then I want you to do something in the console. So code execute if the test is true. After this code is executed, or if it isn't executed due to a test evaluating to a false, program execution resumes at the next line of code. So that simply means if the condition is not met or your test is not true, then it will not execute whatever that you said it should do. It will move on to the next line of code, check if there is some coding to be run, and if there isn't, then it will jump out and tell you what is happening. All right, now let's try to implement this and see what is happening. So suppose I want to say if 4 is greater than 5, please have those curly brackets. Those curly brackets tells you or makes it simple for the compiler to know that if this condition is true, then whatever is inside these curly brackets must be executed. So here it's just to say we're creating condition. This is a condition. Now if 4 is greater than 5, suppose I want to say console dot write line, I want to say 4 is greater than 5. So in this case I want it to return a true or a false. So let's run our code. Oh sorry, console dot write line, let's just say 4 is bigger than 5, and we know because this condition is not true, so the code will not run. It will not enter inside here and try to run that code. It will jump out of the loop and just say press any key to continue. But let's try and make the condition true now. 4 is less than 5. This is true, so console.writeLine will do what? Will now run. So 4 is bigger than 5, even though it's not making sense whatever I've said here, but that was just to show you how it works. Right. The section of code can span multiple lines using blocks in braces. Right. Then let me just simply declare some variables. So you can have these stacked ifs. You can have those stacked ifs with their own parentheses. You can have them if you know that maybe more than one condition can result from that. Now let me just make some example. Let me say I have a string. Oh sorry, let me say I have a char, and then this is gender, and then I immediately assign it a value, for example m, and then I have an int age, and I immediately assign it a value of 12. Now I want to look at the if statements in a more broader way. Suppose I want to say if gender is equals to m, and then I want you to type to output console dot write line you are male. This is what I want to output if the condition is true. Now it will go and check. Initially gender is M and you are testing for M, so it will make a comparison. Is this similar to that? Yes. Then it will come here and execute console.writeLine, you are male. Let's just quickly run it. You are a male, because the condition was true. So condition, so this is the condition we have. Since the condition was true, it will be executed. I can come even here and say if age is equals to 12, then I also want you to say, let me just copy this and paste. I can just say your age is 12. Now, because both of these conditions are true, both these lines of code will be executed. Right, your age is 12. Right, I can even have the last if here. Let me have another variable which we say it's a double, and then we say salary, and then equals 2,400. I can even come in here and say if salary is equals to, or if salary is less than 2,000. So if salary is greater than 2,100, I also want you to output for me console.writeLine your salary is bigger than 2,100. So because I know that all these conditions are true, all those lines will be executed. All those three lines will be executed. Should one result to a false, only those two will be executed. Should maybe, for example, even this one result to a false, only that one will be executed. So this is what we call conditional statements using ifs, those stacked ifs. If you know, for example, more than one condition will be true and you have multiple conditions that you want to execute, please use those stacked ifs. However, there is a much more simpler way of doing this. We can have a simpler way. Instead of having those multiple ifs, those stacked if, we can use the operators that we call the AND and the OR operators. So let me just comment these lines. Come here and say using OR. This is the symbol of OR, and this is the symbol of the AND operators, using the OR and AND operators to simplify our code. Now, suppose you do not want to have those multiple ifs statements, but you just simply want to do what? You want to maybe at least have one if statement that can accommodate two conditions, and then the code will compile based on those conditions being true or false. So we're going to use the OR operator and the AND operator. Now let me explain them briefly that you may understand. The OR operator will only execute a statement if at least one condition is true. So you can have two conditions where at least one result in a true, then it will run your statement irrespective of whether it is making sense or not. But with the AND operator, it will check both conditions if they are true, and only if they are both true then it will run. Should one result in a false, then unfortunately the AND operator will not be able to run. Right, let me just bring these ones closer to us that we may demonstrate fully exactly what is happening here. Right, I can come here and say, all right, if remember we're using if statements with and or. If gender is equals to m, let's start first with the or one, or age it's greater than 11, then what is it that I want to print out? If gender equals m or age is greater than 11, I want you to say, I want you to print out console dot write line you are a male or your age is bigger than 11. Suppose this is just the statement that we want to output. If gender equals m and age is greater than 11, I want you to say you are a male or your age is bigger than 11. So how many conditions do I have here? I have two conditions. It will check, is the first condition true? Yes, the first condition is true. Then even if this one is not true, it will go straight and run my code. Right, let's see if this works out. Yes, it works out. Let's make this one a false. We know that age is bigger than 11, not smaller than 11. So the right side condition is a false. But because at least this one it's a true, it's going to print out this statement irrespective of whether it's making sense or not. This is how the OR operator works. But if I use the AND operator, it will first check, are both conditions true? No, this one it's a false. So it will not print out this. It will jump and say press any key to continue. So this is the difference between the AND and the OR operator. And then when it comes to stacked ifs, I have already explained that, and then we can compare ages and so on. That's fine. When you are free, you will do that. Right, we did what now? Specify additional code using the else statement in combination with an if statement. So we're going to do exactly now that. Now I have said, now if the condition is true and I want you to execute a certain code, well, I can add the else statement to say, if this condition is not true, therefore please print the else part. For example, let me just erase this. I can say if gender is equals to m, I want this person to print console. I want the compiler to print console.writeLine you are male. If this condition is not true, I can say now else, and then I just come in the else. There is no condition. if this one is not true, then it will know exactly if you are not a male, then you are a female. So you don't have to specify a condition here. It will result in an error. It will result in an error. So you don't have those parentheses. You just say else, and then, for example, let me just copy this and paste, and then you are female. No matter what, if this condition is not true, then it will print the else one. But because the condition is true, the first one will be printed out. You are male. Now let's make it a false. Then we know you are female will be printed in the console. So that is what we call the if-else statement. If the condition is not met, then please execute the else part. All right. And then we can have those if else, and so on. So I can come here, right, and have another if, and now say if age is greater than 10, we can come and say for example, you are above 10, and then I can say else you are below 10. I know if you are not above 10, then you are below or equal. You are below or equal 10. Right. So now I have multiple if else, but I am comparing with different variables here. I am comparing with different variables. Right. Let us now check. Is the first one, the condition, true? No, it will not print it out. It will say you are female. Well, is the second one true? Yes, it is true. Age is greater than 10, so it will say you are above 10. And when we run it, we have it exactly. So those are what now? The if-else statements. And then when we deal with the assignments and we deal with exercises, I believe very much that you will understand exactly what is happening. This is just a brief summary of these things, but a thorough application and understanding, it's required when we will be dealing with the exercises. I believe very much that you will understand fully what is happening here. Right. Then we will be looking at what? I want us to look at the simplest way to perform a comparison is to use the ternary or the conditional operator. Now let's look at that very quickly. Right, the ternary operator, it's an operator of the following. Suppose I have the very same declared variables. Let me bring them very close to us so that we may know exactly what we are dealing with. All right. Suppose I want to say now console dot write line. Now this is the syntax of ternary. We'll have this and you will have that, and then close them with a colon. Right, this is where the condition is. This is your condition, the ternary operator. If the condition is true, print this. If the condition is false, print that one. Suppose I want to say for it's greater. Okay, let me use those variables that we have. Let's say gender is equals to let's say M. Gender equals M, and I can say and, for example, and age it's greater than 13. If gender equals M and age is greater than 13, I want you to print out true, or else I want you to print a false. So it will come and check the condition. Remember, and requires both to be true. Is age greater than 13? No, so a false will be printed out. So we have a false. This is what we call the ternary operator. We can also use the ternary operator. It says the simplest way to perform a comparison is to use the ternary or the comparison operator. And this is the syntax of the ternary operators. So in this second tutorial, this is all what I wanted us to look at. And then in the third one, we will be doing exercises based on the if and the else statements, and then one will understand thoroughly now exactly what is happening. So I want to thank you very much for your time, guys. I want to thank you very much for your watching this video. Please like, subscribe and share, because we are honestly making a difference in software development.